Hello everyone, it's Abraham. So today we're doing a book review. It's a favorite book of mine. It's by Peter Drucker and it's called Managing Oneself. Now, I have read this book way back when, like maybe 3 years ago. So funny story. Here's how this review came about and this book summary. So I was sitting today, I was working on another video and I was collecting things from the internet and doing research and putting the things, all the information together. And today here in Canada it's the day off. We have the day off and there was an extreme thunderstorm warning. And then the thunderstorm starts and then I lose my internet connection as a result, and my mobile data on my phone is not working as well. So I'm not going to go out because it's kind of risky and I'm kind of disconnected from the whole world. So what I do is I just look for a book to read, and we're in 2018, so most of us just read on our laptops or on iPads and electric devices. So I just look through the books that I have and I stumble upon this review for this book that I read a couple of years ago. And I look at the review and it's super detailed. It's something that I put into a lot of effort and a lot of passion. And I remember that I also made a presentation for this review, and it was a really good one with a lot of use of visual aids and all that good stuff. So I read the review again and the summary again, and I decided to make a video about it. So this video is going to be a little bit unconventional. I'm going to be talking about the stuff that I read. I'm going to use the summary that I have here. So it's not going to be super professional, it's going to be spontaneous, and let's just enjoy the summary. So Peter Drucker, he's a very famous business entrepreneur and business pioneer. He was a professor and he really pioneered the whole field of business. So Managing Oneself talks about the skills you need to properly manage yourself and navigate yourself through the journey of life. And managing yourself is basically about learning to know yourself. So Drucker says in order for us to manage ourselves properly, we need to develop our skills and develop ourselves and place ourselves where we can make the greatest contribution to society. And we need to stay mentally alert at all times and engage throughout all our careers. So in order to do this, we need to know the how and when. And specifically, we're talking here about the how and when of changing our careers if we ever need to, because 50-year career is a long time. So the first thing to do in order to develop ourselves and manage ourselves properly is to know what our strength is. So we got to ask ourselves the questions. This question: what are my strengths? Now, most people, unfortunately, do not have a specific answer for this question. And if you ask most people, they will tell you what they are not good at as opposed to what they are good at. So again, we stress here the fact that we gotta come to an understanding of what we are good at. Because the problem is a lot of people focus too much on what they are not good at, and they spend their life trying to strengthen and improve what they are not good at instead of working on what you are good at. Because Drucker here argues that a person can only perform from a strength. Building on weakness is a waste of time and it's not feasible. You'd rather build on a strength. And I remember there's another favorite author of mine, a leadership author, John Maxwell, and I don't exactly remember the name of the book, but I think it's something about the habits of good leaders. He talks about the fact that if you want to be a successful leader, a successful person in life, you gotta focus on your strength, because you gotta be efficient, right? You only have so many years to live. So yeah, we're talking about the strengths, and then Drucker says that we gotta ask the question, how do we discover our strengths? And here he proposes the idea or process that we should follow that is called feedback analysis. So how does feedback analysis work? Feedback analysis says that when we make any key decision in life, we should write down what we expect will happen. And then 9 to 12 months later, we compare the actual results to our expectations. Now, this is very important, because if we practice this consistently enough, this simple method can show us within a fairly short and reasonable period of time, and Drucker here says it's 2 to 3 years, where our strengths lie, because you put in a certain effort and you expect a certain result. Now, if the area you're working on, you have enough strengths in that area or field, you have to get the results you expect. If not, then you know that there's a weakness there. So Drucker says here that this feedback analysis method will show us, number one, what we are doing or failing to do, and how it's depriving us from the full benefits of our strengths, and where we are not particularly competent, and where we have no strengths and cannot perform. So basically, after using the feedback analysis for a considerable period of time, we'll be able to discover what areas and what skills we should focus on. Moving on through our book summary and review. So there are certain implications of this feedback analysis. So to make it work, we should again concentrate on our strengths, work on improving our strengths, an area of strength, and discover where our intellectual arrogance is, which means we have an area of our knowledge we're arrogant about and we think we know everything about. Instead, we should be open and objective and try to learn more. Now, the next question we should ask in our journey toward knowing ourselves and managing ourselves properly is the question of, how do I perform? So few people know how to get things done, and that's what Drucker is saying. So few of us know also that different people work and perform differently. So we do not all work the same way. If we were obliged and pushed into working in a way that does not suit the way we work, we are almost guaranteed to underperform or even non-perform at all. So Drucker here is saying that how a person performs is a matter of personality, which is the result of nature over nurture. He even argues that the way we perform is established way long before we join the marketplace and the workforce, because again, it's a result of nature and not nurture. Actually, both nature and nurture. It's the result of the environment we grow up in. So it's long established well before we join the workforce. So Drucker here is also alluding to some personality traits that are very important in determining how a person works and performs. So first here is someone got to ask themselves when we talk about personality traits. Are they readers or listeners? Because readers and listeners learn in different ways and perform in different ways. For example, if you're a reader and you have to talk to an audience, you would like, of course, to read the material wholly and fully and carefully before you talk to people about it. Also, readers cannot multitask. They cannot hear a question and answer a question at the same time. They have first to hear the question, then answer the questions. So what Drucker here argues is that the listener who tries to be a reader will suffer, and the reader who tries to be a listener will suffer as well. The next question we gotta ask in order to discover our personality traits is, how do we learn? How do I learn? That's a question you have to ask yourself. There are many types and ways of learners, and if I remember correctly, you could be either a writer, or let's see, what else do we have here? So different people learn, different ways people learn. So some people learn by writing. So they sit down, let's say in a lecture, they have to write in order to remember. And based on this, some people take it to another level. Some people learn by taking enormous amount and endless amount of notes. So while I was in college, I was the same way. If I sit in class and I want to learn something new, I will write down everything the professor says. That's the way I learn. If I don't write down, I'm not going to remember. I'm not going to be able to build associations or between the new things that I'm learning. Some people learn by doing. They're very pragmatic. They have to do the thing to learn, while other people learn by hearing themselves talk. Now, this is what Drucker is saying, but I would like to argue that we learn through a combination of all these things. And I think it depends on the situation. So if I'm sitting in a class that is all about theory, I would learn by writing and taking notes. But if I'm sitting in a class that requires action and application, I will learn by doing, because I think most people like to get their hands dirty, as they say, and learn and try themselves. It's the joy of learning that you gotta do things yourself. Okay, let's move on. What else do we have here through this summary? Drucker also says that knowing is only half the equation. Self-knowledge without action, self-knowledge is not enough, because self-knowledge without action, doesn't get you a result. So he's saying that acting on this self-knowledge about our personal traits is the key to success. And not acting on this knowledge will condemn us to non-performance. So after we ask all these questions, am I a reader, am I a listener, how do I learn, and discovering our personality traits, the next thing we gotta do is we have to ask ourselves, do I work better independently, or do I work better around and with people? And if the answer is with people, then the next question will be, in what kind of relationships? Do I work better with people as a follower, as a subordinate? Do I work with people better as an equal team member? Or do I work better with people as a mentor, as a coach? Or do I only work better on my own? So even if you work with people, if you were put in a situation that you have to follow instead of lead, and you're a leader, that's not going to work. If you work better with people, but you were put in a situation where you have to lead, but instead you like to be on equal footing with everyone else and be just a part of the team, equal with everyone, then you're also going to be miserable. You're also not going to perform. You're also not going to perform well. So you have always to know, even in a team setting, how do you best work in the dynamics of a team. Otherwise, you're not going to contribute to society the way you aspire to. Another crucial question here to ask about your personality is whether you perform better as a decision maker or an advisor. Now, let's see what's the difference here. So some people, even when they're in a team, and even when they are in a leadership role in a team, they're not gonna perform and contribute the way they should if they're assigned to be advisors instead of makers and vice versa. Now, decision makers, they make the decisions, right? They have the, let's say, the courage to take some decisions that might affect all the team. And not all leaders or people who work with people are willing or ready to do such acts. Whereas advisors, the role is much softer. It's a kind of soft leadership. What they have to do is they have to give advice and information on how to implement a certain decision. So it's very important for everyone to know whether they will be the person who's going to suggest the decisions to be made or to be the person who makes the final decision. Now, let's move on. So now we talked about personality traits and knowing how we work in a team and how to manage ourselves. Now, to continue in the same kind of discourse and subject matter, next question will be to ask, what are my values? So our values are important. Our values defined how we treat our job. Our values defined how we treat others who work with us and for us and around us. And now Drucker here makes it clear that when he talks about values, he's not only talking about ethics. He's talking about something he calls the mirror test. He's saying you got to ask yourself, what kind of person do you want to see in the mirror in the morning when you wake up? For Drucker, ethics are part of a value system, especially of an organization value system. He's also saying that, and that's very, very important, if one is working in an organization that has a value system that is not acceptable, incompatible, or different from that person's value system, then that person is going to be frustrated, miserable, and he or she will underperform or even non-perform. So make sure when you get a job, you work in a place where the value system is congruent with your own value system. Otherwise, your performance will take a hit. And that's not something we want, because we all aim to contribute to society and make it better and leave a legacy behind us. Drucker also talks about the fact that we should always strive to be responsible in our relationships. Responsibility for relationships. So Drucker makes it clear here that few of the people who achieve and overachieve in life, in their jobs, in their relationships, and in their contributions to society, it is very seldom for such people that they work on their own, right? In order for us to manage ourselves properly, we have to understand that people have a big hand in how our life unfolds and in our contributions. So Drucker is saying here that the key point would be to accept the fact that other people are as much individuals as ourselves. So to be effective, we have to know other strengths, performance modes, and their values as co-workers. We have to understand and respect the fact that others will have their own way of doing things, and that they will also insist on behaving through those values. So we gotta respect others' strengths, others' point of view, others' morals, and others' way of doing things. So we gotta come to a state of synergy, of understanding, where we can harmonize our skills with theirs. And I remember here a book that I read a while ago for Stephen Covey, the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I'm talking here about his book that is called The Third Alternative. And he talks about the fact when people are in an argument and each party is trying to stress that their solution is the best solution, Stephen R. Covey argues that there should be a third alternative where the two teams respect their values and respect their point of views, and they come to a point of agreement in the middle, a compromise that suits everyone. And I think that's what we should always do in the professional world. We should always make sure that everyone is heard and their point of view and their skills are taken into account, and then we take all the skills, combine them together, and come up with something that is much, much better. And that's the way to go in the modern workforce. Okay. Drucker talks about another important topic, which is thinking about the second part of your life. Now, a lot of us, well, especially in the past, so the previous generation, people used to work for 40, 50, and 60 years the same job, and then they used to retire, and that used to be it. So people did not have to worry about life after the workforce. But nowadays we live in an age where most of the jobs we do are information based. In the information, we're now living in the information economy. Not a lot of us do jobs that are physical or labor intensive or labor oriented. So a lot of us achieve most of our career goals midway through our careers, and Drucker here gives the example of the high-level business executives who are bored by the time they're 40 or 45 because they know that their careers are not going to advance further. They have achieved the highest level of their potential, and then they're bored and depressed. So Drucker here gives the advice of having a second career and thinking about your second career way before you hit 40, 50, or 60 or retirement, because you got to have a solid plan for what you're going to do after you retire. And Drucker here gives the example of being a successful lawyer, business manager, engineer, and on your time off you volunteer as a school head coach, for example. And Drucker is saying here that the key is to start thinking about one's second career long, and I've said that and I will stress it again, long before you hit middle age and the time you will retire. So also Drucker finishes here by saying that one should become a social entrepreneur. We should understand the environment around us, keep our jobs, and have a second activity where we contribute to society. And this ties in with our what we should do in our second half of our life. And he's given the advice of starting a non-profit that helps the community. So I think basically that's all I have to say about the book summary. Now the book itself as a book, I think I like it a lot. I read it a couple of years ago and it helped me understand a lot of things, and I think there's still a lot to be learned from this book. I might read it again, and when I read it again I might write a better summary. And again, that's a good thing to do, guys. Whenever you read, summarize, synthesize the information and relate them to your own knowledge and learn from the information. That's the best way to learn. So I think the book is really helpful for people who are starting their careers, to make them think about the big picture, that a career is not a career just to make money and have social and financial security, which is important. It's important to have a job where you're secure and financially independent. But you always have to think about how is your job going to affect society, how it's going to build your legacy, how it's going to contribute to society. Does your job work well in the culture you live in? Is it congruent with your values and other people's values? Is it going to make you fulfilled? Is it going to make you feel happy? Is it the kind of job you're going to be able to do for 40, 50 years? Is it the kind of job that will give you enough opportunities to elevate and get promoted in life and your career? Is it the kind of job that will allow you to spend enough time with your family? And all these kind of questions. We have always to think and look at the big picture. So I think that's enough for today. I hope you found the information I presented here useful. And as always, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.